Hello and welcome back to another deep dive here on Westferry Times. I'm your host, and today we're tackling something, well, pretty complex and moving fast. It's the intersection of artificial intelligence and copyright law, specifically here in the UK. We've been looking at some recent reports and expert takes, and we want to unpack what's going on. And guiding us through all this, we're really pleased to have Dr. Thomas Green with us. He's a professor at King's College London, specializing in intellectual property law. Welcome, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. And yes, thank you for watching Westferry Times.
Great. So let's dive in. This data use and access bill, it's been going through Parliament. Could you maybe give us a sense of what the bill is generally trying to do?
Certainly. So at its core, the bill is really about setting up a framework for data access and use,
Mm-hmm.
especially, with AI becoming so much more significant. But a really key part, and where copyright comes right into the center, is how the bill addresses the way AI companies can or can't use copyrighted material.
Okay, and what are the main worries around that? When AI companies use copyrighted works, what's the sort of the core issue there?
Well, the fundamental concern really is about how these AI models are trained. They learn by processing absolutely massive data sets. And these data sets, well, they often contain huge amounts of copyrighted stuff, books, music, articles, images, you name it. The problem is this training frequently happens without specific permission from the people who own the copyright, and usually without any payment changing hands either.
Right. So if that just carries on, what could that mean for the creators themselves, the artists, writers, musicians?
The potential impact on creative industries is, well, pretty significant. If AI firms can just use copyrighted works freely for training, without needing permission or paying anything, it could really undermine the rights and the income of creators.
I see. That definitely sounds serious. Now, I understand the House of Lords looked closely at this part of the bill. What did they do about these AI copyright concerns?
Yes, the Lords were quite involved. They proposed specific amendments to the data bill. Their main goal was to bring in more transparency. Basically, amendments that would require AI companies to actually disclose what copyrighted materials they've used to train their models.
So the idea is to give creators a better view of how their work is being used under the hood, so to speak.
Exactly. The thinking is, if creators know their work is being used, it gives them a basis to maybe negotiate licenses or seek fair compensation. It's about giving them that visibility first.
That makes sense. How did those amendments go down in the House of Lords itself? Was there much support?
Oh, yes. There was considerable support. The amendments passed with a pretty significant majority. It showed there's real concern about this issue within the Lords. And importantly, you also had prominent figures from the creative world, people like Sir Elton John, Sir Paul McCartney, publicly backing these changes, really emphasizing the need to protect creators' rights.
Okay, so the Lords made a move, but legislative processes are rarely straightforward. What was the government's reaction to these Lords amendments?
Well, the government expressed some reservations. Their main argument was that while they get the importance of copyright, they felt these specific amendments might be jumping the gun a bit. They worried it could potentially slow down innovation in the AI sector, which they see as crucial.
So they're suggesting maybe dealing with this later, perhaps in a bigger copyright reform package.
That seems to be the gist of it, yes. They've talked about preferring a more sort of holistic approach rather than these specific tweaks to this particular bill right now.
And did they just express reservations, or did they take concrete steps regarding the amendments passed by the Lords?
They took action. The government used parliamentary procedures to actually remove that transparency amendment from the bill when it came back to the Commons.
Removed it. What reasons did they give for that?
The stated reasons centered on potential financial implications and also the argument that more consultation was needed before bringing in such a requirement.
I imagine that didn't go over too well with the creative community. What's been the reaction from artists and creators?
The reaction has been one of, well, significant concern and frustration, really. It sparked quite a response. We saw a collective protest involving over 1,000 artists, including some very big names like Kate Bush and Damon Albarn.
1,000 artists protesting. That sounds substantial. How did they protest? What did they do?
It was quite a creative and symbolic act, actually. They released what they called a silent album.
A silent album.
Yes. The message was pretty clear, trying to illustrate what the future might sound like or look like if creative work isn't properly protected from unauthorized use by AI.
Wow. That's a powerful statement. So the core message from creators is that they need strong safeguards. Otherwise, their livelihoods and maybe even our cultural richness are at risk from AI using their work without permission.
Precisely. They're arguing for the value of their work and the need for protection so they can actually earn a living. They see unchecked AI use as a real threat to that.
Okay, so we have this situation where the Lords add something, the Commons takes it out. This sounds like what gets called parliamentary ping pong. Could you explain that a bit?
Yes, that's exactly what parliamentary ping pong refers to. It's when a bill gets passed back and forth between the House of Commons and the House of Lords because they can't agree on the final wording, usually on specific amendments. So here, the Lords put in the Transparency Amendment. The Commons took it out based on the government's view. That sends the bill back to the Lords. They then have to decide whether to insist on their amendment, drop it, or propose something else. And back it might go.
Right, like a game. So what does this ping pong mean for the data bill and this whole AI copyright debate? What are the implications?
Well, the immediate impact is often delay. The bill might take longer to become law if it does at all in its current form, creates uncertainty. But more broadly, it really highlights this underlying tension, doesn't it? The push for technological innovation, especially in AI, versus the need to protect intellectual property rights that have existed for a long time. It's a balancing act.
Looking forward then, how might this standoff get resolved? What are the possible ways this could end?
There are a few possibilities. The government could decide to compromise, maybe accept a modified version of the Lord's Amendment, leading to stronger copyright rules in this bill. Or they could hold firm, reject the Lord's position again. That might lead to more ping pong, potentially delaying the bill further, or even risking legal challenges down the line from creative groups if the final bill doesn't address their concerns. Where it lands will really set a marker for how the UK balances AI development and creators' rights, at least for now.
And you mentioned earlier the government was looking at copyright reform more broadly. Could that wider review play a role here?
Yes, absolutely. That's a really important piece of the puzzle. The government finished a big review of copyright law recently. We're expecting their response to that review later this year. It's possible that response could propose a more comprehensive way to deal with AI and copyright, potentially offering solutions that go beyond just this one amendment in the data bill.
So that broader review could end up being where the bigger policy decisions are made.
It could be. Many people are certainly watching that space very closely, hoping it provides a clearer, more sustainable framework for everyone involved.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for walking us through such a complex and frankly fast-moving area. It's been really helpful.
You're very welcome. Glad I could shed some light on it.
And thank you for joining us for this deep dive on Westferry Times. As you've heard, the intersection of AI and copyright law is, well, it's complicated and it's definitely not settled yet. It makes you think about that balance, doesn't it? Between pushing forward with amazing new technology and making sure we protect the creative work that enriches our lives. Here's something to ponder. How will these legal decisions being made now ultimately shape the future, not just for AI, but for art, music, writing, and creativity itself? We'll leave you with that thought. Thanks again for tuning into Westferry Times. Until next time.